The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of four youths. It is all the more tragic in that they were young. But had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic recording session became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre podcasts in the annals of American history, the Digital Nitrate Massacre.
Relax, Chief. What's wrong? No sense of humor? Can't you take a joke?
So, that's our convoluted and dramatic story as to how we found all these film prints here on in our salt mine, Mr. Frankenstein and Mr. Dracula.
Please. Mr. Frankenstein was my father. I'm Mr. Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Frankenstein's monster and Mr. Dracula.
Thank you for coming all the way to the Isle of Goto. From Universal Studios, of all places.
Yes, thank you. Can we please check a few of these prints that you have on hand and get an idea as to why they're here?
Yeah, and why don't we make it 3 spooky prints, seeing as it's Halloween and all?
What the fuck is Halloween?
Look out for Carl Byrne as the Peeping Tom.
Hold on real quick, let me get some crisp Foley here of me opening this can.
Oh, should I have brought... I guess I can't get up to top off my amaretto.
Mr. Dracula, are you alright?
All of this is supposed to be cut out, but it's all gonna stay in.
You could trim it a little.
What the fuck is that shit on my floor?
And my cat came in once from being outside and she had a claw embedded in her face.
I can't do this, dude. I can't fucking do it. No way.
No.
We're gonna get in trouble for that one.
Mr. Dracula is seasick from the journey.
Just got off the demeanor.
I don't...
We're very loose on the rules. Okay. And it's our salt mine, okay? We bought this land.
I'm just imagining you holding Chandler's hand as you say it.
He's too in character. He's a method actor.
I literally had my body chopped apart and stitched back together.
He's hitting the ejector seat.
I am a film executive.
I thought you were gonna say I'm
That is what I said in so many words.
We're cutting this out. Are we ready to record the rest of the episode?
That old devil Hooch has turned her into the unsightly person you see before you.
The first film of the night is the film that killed Michael Powell's career, Peeping Tom.
It was about time we talked about this, because we tried to talk about this last year.
Right.
But anyway, we finally watched it, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. After years of being the premier English filmmaker, Michael Powell made a slasher film about how we as audiences are implicated in the voyeurism of movies, and everybody turned on him for it.
Chased him out of London, just like you, Mr. Dracula.
Shut the fuck up! No!
You'll have to forgive my associate. He's something went awry with his brain.
His new criminal brain is fucking destroying this podcast.
Yeah. He's a bit one note.
He was kind of like Hitchcock, Britain's Hitchcock.
Yeah,
wasn't he in a way? But
and so
Britcock, if you will.
The film came out the same year as Psycho, which
2 months before Psycho, we beat you, motherfucker. Dismissive.
Yeah. I mean, they're both British movies. I don't. What do you mean? We beat you?
Is Psycho British?
Yeah, who is you?
Alfred. I mean, I guess it's an American production, but it's a British director.
I would say Psycho is firmly American in its presentation.
Sure. So yeah, so an American production but a British director.
And I'm arguing one of the best horror movies of all time is American, purely so that I can beat you on the fact that the British Psycho came first. The one that's not as good as Psycho.
Anyways, it's since kind of been reappraised, I think in many ways, in part because of Martin Scorsese's love for it, and also that he himself basically bankrolled its getting like screened in the United States, and got it into the New York Film Festival in 1979, and people have realized that it's one of the great films.
I know it was banned, just like straight up banned, for a while in Britain, because notoriously we have a track record of just banning films that we don't like, the films that offend our delicate sensibilities.
Yeah, you guys hate sex.
We hate sex, and we hate murders, and we hate stabbings, notoriously so, despite our history of stabbings.
I was rather surprised to see any amount of nudity in this film for a film of its time.
I think it was one of the first to
It would have had to be.
naked ladies.
There's not really that much nudity in it, though.
No, I think
even
there's one
still.
scene.
I mean, it's amazing how, comparatively even to 80s horror, how, almost tame this is, despite having nudity and violence and anything. But I mean, you really look at it, and any Friday the 13th film has, multitudes more kind of egregious, content.
Yeah, I think though what the difference is I'm kind of gonna paraphrase a little bit here, but there's a line from Scorsese where he says, like, I think people just didn't like seeing that part of themselves kind of on screen, or to empathize with, to be confronted in this way that Peeping Tom does, where you can kind of like distance yourself from what's happening with Friday the 13th, whereas like you kind of, I guess for the time too, you have this very empathetic killer, this guy that we sort of follow from beginning to end in his kind of perversions and compulsions. The meta text of it all is just this movie not just about watching and this our kind of fascination with watching, but also like a movie about being like an artist, being a filmmaker, and then kind of portraying it as this very volatile, like almost evil thing.
It's got the same message as the scene in The Fabelmans, where Sammy Fabelman's parents get a divorce, and he looks at himself in the mirror and he's filming them.
Right. There's
it's that, but as a feature-length slasher film. It's great.
Let me tell you a thing or two about this film, okay? So the camera is like a penis.
I mean, that's not incorrect. Like, there is quite literally a penetrating device attached to the end of his camera.
I accidentally said something smart that I have to back up now. And
So Leo Marks, the screenwriter, had kind of pitched the idea to him, and I think it was originally going to be a Freud film.
It is.
Well, but like, but literally about Freud, I think. But there's a quote where it says the idea was a boy who is warped by his father because he's got this bug about sound and vision, and he uses the boy as a medical case. To which Powell immediately replied, "That's for me." But please continue.
You were saying the camera's a penis?
Right. It's just interesting if you go back to films of that time period, 1900 to 1960, where you get similar scenarios of extreme violence, and you think of the villainous films of the 30s to the 50s, and science fiction exploitation films of that era, where you have just as shall we say, wacky scenarios of people killing or using science as some sort of tool for murder or to gain power or something along those lines. And those are seen as somewhat anodyne, like people aren't as offended by that. But something like this, which is a bit more psychological, bothers them. As soon as it can be applied or is applied more realistically, then that's a problem. But it does it very well, regardless. It's a very thoughtful film, despite being basically an exploitation film.
Despite being from the 60s.
I think there's an interesting point to expand on with what you said about like the science angle of things. Like this movie, I think, is part of a lineage of media that all comes from this like old folkloric belief that like a photograph would capture the spirit of a person, and that's kind of like an implicit driving belief of our protagonist of the film, Mark Lewis, that he wants to kill these people on camera in order to capture some undiluted essence from them. And then this is, it comes from that folkloric idea, but you can see the idea of like film capturing the spirit in some way in other things like Ring or the Goosebumps book Say Cheese and Die, or like even in a sense of like the Portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde,
No, go on about Say Cheese and Die.
I wonder what all that's about. I don't know. We'll find out afterwards.
I'm severely underprepared for this discussion.
How can this be? You're British.
Joel, do you have any notes?
I do.
Do you have any stories of voyeurism?
I have several, but none will be shared tonight. I do have a list of pornos.
Can you please forward that to my office at Universal Studios, please?
So, we I will, Mr. Frankenstein's
Thank
monster. You. But we talked briefly about the nudity, the brief nudity in this film, which was the first of its time, and that was the glamour model Pamela Green, who, on all accounts, was just severely mistreated on set. That's par for the course with old directors, is they're all like awful people. But I was doing my research on her, don't ask. Was instantly amused by the fact that she was married to the glamour photographer George Harrison Marks.
Hold on.
Not the Beatle, unfortunately.
My two favorite people combined in one?
George Harrison and Marx. But I prepared a list of some of my favorite pornos that George Harrison Marx put together for everyone here to enjoy.
Alright, let's see.
We have French Maids Flogging.
Oh, God.
Presumably is about French maids and flogging. The Spanking Academy of Dr. Blunt. Sounds pretty good. We have Rawhide.
Oh, I love that show.
The Spanking Game and the Spanking Game 2. It was good enough to get a sequel.
Yeah, the sequel actually improved on the original, in my opinion.
But the one that excited me the most was called Nightmare at Elm Manor, which obviously is very close to the title Nightmare on Elm Street. So, if we could, on this spookiest of nights, get out a copyright-free spirit board and contact the ghost of Wes Craven and ask him if there's any connection between Elm Manor and Elm Street. Because, I mean, Wes directed that porno. It's not that out of the question. He's in the world of porno.
Fun fact, my reanimated body actually contains the kidneys of Wes Craven.
That's even better. We can get in contact with him through you.
Yeah.
Does that mean you piss Wes Craven's piss?
Wes Craven filters my piss.
That sounds like something you would damn somebody to do, right? Like, I'm gonna have you filter my piss.
I damn you to filter my piss for an eternity.
Yeah. That was his fate because of My Soul to Take, actually.
Oh, my kidneys to take. Right, I'm glad we could bring the class down.
I assume we're wrapping up the Peeping Tom talk by that horrifying.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Michael Powell about the movie that I think is rather rather good. Peeping Tom is a very tender film, a very nice one, almost a romantic film. I felt very close to the hero, who is an absolute director, someone who approaches life like a director, who is conscious of and suffers from it. He is a technician of emotion, and I am someone who is thrilled by technique, always mentally editing in the scene in front of me on the street. So I was able to share his anguish.
Beautiful.
I think Powell's a weirdo.
That's the point.
Does Powell kill people? Is he a murderer?
No, he's dead.
I want to mention an anecdote on the film.
Yes?
Yeah, so I
We're
recall...
not done with Peeping Tom.
What's that?
We're not done with Peeping Tom,
No.
apparently.
No, I had notes though. Yeah, so there's this anecdote that Martin Scorsese has told of screening Peeping Tom, I believe with the president of Warner Brothers, who was intent on remaking the film at the time for an American audience because it didn't receive an American release because of the controversy. And like right after the screening, as Martin tells it, the president of Warner Brothers at the time was just like, nope, can't be topped. And I wish that message got passed on to Edgar Wright before he made Last Night in Soho.
I heard that movie was trying to be more like Repulsion.
It is repulsive.
I mean, there's an element of voyeurism in that film from the perspective of, I forget the name of the characters, but the fashion designer who lives in the present having this voyeuristic attitude towards this figure in the past that she has a connection
It
to.
would not surprise me.
I heard that film was trying to be good.
It sure was.
No.
No, it sure was trying, I mean.
Mr. Frankenstein, work on your prose. I'm sorry, Mr. Frankenstein's monster.
Yes, please. I want to shout out the really incredible set design on this film as well.
Oh my god.
There are a few scenes that just looked like absolute Toontown shit in the best way. It's like the opening.
I don't follow what you mean by that, but it is one of just the most gorgeous looking movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The outdoor sets look like
paintings.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, they're very cute and like beautiful. Like they're like they work well for the subject of this film. I appreciated them. They did look stylized. That is what I mean when I say Toontown looking.
I have a question.
What's up?
Is it possible to dead name Frankenstein if he's already dead?
Undead. Excuse you.
This snowflake. This little lily flower.
Look, as a reformed monster myself, I thought this tale of a struggling voyeur trying to overcome his demons was very powerful and moving.
When I wrote this throwaway line in our intro, I envisioned you would be humans that just happened to be called Frankenstein and Dracula.
That was your first mistake.
But I love that you're apparently monsters.
Yeah,
You invited the theater kid over.
that's why I'm quite fond of this salt mine that we're recording in, because the salt is doing wonders for preserving my rotting flesh.
What about the giant building fire we have over there, though? Is that stressing you
That
out?
does
Jesus
bother me
Christ,
a little
that's
bit.
my fucking house.
That is making my bolts tingle ever so slightly.
Who the fuck set my house on fire?
I want to shout out the guy in this film who pronounced the word Mimo
Take a Mimo.
instead of memo. Multiple times he incorrectly says
Take a
Mimo.
memo.
You didn't get the memo, am I right?
Yeah. I also, for some
Rap
reason...
on Peeping Tom.
What's that? One more.
we rap?
One more.
We're almost getting to Elvira lengths
we're
of fucking
yeah,
discussion.
I really like the line, they can only hang you once, and then he says exactly in response to that. I thought that was a standout piece of dialogue in this film.
He didn't even get hanged.
No.
Which scene was that?
That
He
was...
fell on a knife.
Yeah, that was, well, yeah, they're in
Talking
the
to
studio. Moira. Yep, that's all. That's all my notes.
Well,
I finished my wine.
The bitch! She fainted in the wrong scene!
Cut! How was it? Phil? Tom? Mark? Print it!
See it in a darkened theater.
I'm getting a call from some coworkers at Universal, Habit and Costello.
Habit.
They'd like us to talk about the next film.
Well, they
speaking
wanted
of Costello,
they wanted to meet up with Mr. Frankenstein's monster actually, but they said they were amenable to doing a group effort as well.
Like an orgy?
I had a look in the kitchen. We've run out of lobster, so we're gonna have to crab it.
Habit.
What the fuck does that even mean? Is that a British thing?
I liked mine better.
Like, habit. Rhymes with habit.
Are you guys talking about that film we watched, Habit?
No, we're talking about the guest bit.
So the thing about sexy vampires.
Whoa! We jumping right into it.
The thing about sexy vampires is, well, I mean, they're all sexy. You know, that's kind of the whole point.
This is the intro to Habit.
Habit.
But you know, that's how they get you. You know, because
My problem with Habit,
sex and murder, you know, not all that different.
See it in a darkened theater.
I'm not gonna fucking intro it. I don't give a shit if you don't know two fucking things about Habit.
So Chandler, you have an alcohol addiction. What's Habit about?
Listen, the 5 people that listen to this podcast don't even know who Larry Fessenden even is, okay? It doesn't even fucking matter, alright?
Hey, we know and we listen to the podcast.
We are the 5 people.
The 5
know.
people are in this call right now. They all know Larry
The call is
Fessenden.
coming from within the house.
Who the fuck is Harry Fessenden?
Habit. See it in a darkened theater.
Larry's hairy cock is the star of the 1997 film Habit.
It's 1995, isn't it?
Directed, produced, written, and edited by Larry Fessenden.
Wait.
It's both 95 and 97. Fun fact about Habit, it was very rough to release that film because nobody cares about independent cinema from New York.
It's also, this is a remake of a film he made prior.
Yeah, he made a student film in 1981 called Habit, which is basically the same story. He has since talked about wanting to remake it again with him and his current age. However, in a way, he kind of has. I haven't seen it, but that new film he's got, what's it called?
Blackout? Something to do with, like, the moon and darkness.
Killers of the Flower Moon?
Blackout, 2023, starring Alex Hurt, where instead of a vampire, it's werewolves.
Any sort of universal monster to represent addiction, am I right? Mr. Dracula and Mr. Frankenstein's monster.
He's kind of already got werewolves. He's already got werewolves in Habit, doesn't he?
He just has dogs.
Or they're like coyotes, whatever. I'm not gonna say coyotes. I'm gonna say coyotes. Fuck you.
Well, not to educate you on your own history, Mr. Dracula, but it used to be an aspect of vampires to turn into a wolf also.
What?
Yeah.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah, they could turn into a few things, not just bat.
Dracula has fucking everything. I know we're already digressing way beyond.
So what's this movie about,
subject
anyways?
of-
Sort of about a lonely, sad, depressed, useless, alcoholic, no good New Yorker.
Whose father just died.
Whose father just died.
His father just died?
Yeah.
His father just died.
Yeah, you may have missed that detail when you were watching it at 8 times speed.
I missed every detail.
And he's also just broken it off with his long-term love interest.
Well, she's left.
Liza.
So now Larry, also known as Sam, is kind of strung out.
Also known as Twink Jack Nicholson.
Oh, that's so true. This is like if 5 Easy Pieces was horny.
I'm gonna be honest. That's one of the worst things you've ever said, Chandler.
All right, look, guys, let's get down to the fucking brass tacks of this. Larry Fessenden wanted to get his nut off on a film.
And he did.
This film is nothing but self-insert OC, like ego porn.
Oh, he
Larry
inserts
Fessenden,
himself plenty.
and he inserts himself a lot.
Ego porn?
It's ego porn. Larry Fessenden is like, my ex still loves me. This new fucking ripping hot babe loves me, and she wants to have sex with me all the time. Kelly Reichardt loves me.
Whoa. Slow down. The vampire lady that's just preying on any sad
Who was
sack.
ripping hot.
Yes, we know you're horny for the Rachel Maddow vampire.
Oh my god.
I don't get the impression it's 100% just predation, like on a vampire.
That's fair, but Larry also said this is a movie about him.
Well, sure, I'm not denying that, but I don't think this doesn't strike me as just someone stroking their ego.
He's stroking his cock.
It strikes me as
Anna's stroking his cock.
It strikes me very much
Battery
as,
Park. How many people do you think have recreated the scene from Habit after seeing this?
I don't think anybody's seen this.
It's not on Blu-ray. I tried to buy it for the purposes of this podcast, and you can only get it on the Larry Fessenden collection, which is like $80, and it has four films on it.
The Wikipedia page has one tab, and it's the plot, and it's a paragraph long.
But I mean, even his friend Nick loves him, like in a gay way. Even Ray's kind of into him, like they had a thing.
His manifesto is, everybody wants to fuck me, but I'm so fucked up.
I do think it's important to note, too, that Kelly Reichardt being in the movie is not like a coincidence or happenstance.
She has a huge part.
What?
She has a huge part in the film. She's talking on the phone.
She takes up like a quarter of the frame.
She has a bit part in the movie. Larry Fessenden also notably is in Kelly Reichardt's first film, Rivers of Grass. He also has a minor role in... Is it her second film?
They almost definitely went to New York Film School together. Like, that's where they would have met.
Yeah, almost as if these bohemians all knew each other.
And I think part of what I really liked about this movie, especially in its first half, I love the look of this movie. I think it's really well edited. I think it has this real, like, not to sound like, how do I put this? Not to sound like the fucking poser or whatever, like, but it has this real, like, I don't know how else to put this, but I don't want to be like, oh, you know, it really captures the real New York, you know, like the real New York. It's got that real grime.
Just do it. It's really funny to say it captured the real New York. I'm gonna say that about The Guest.
But, and it's not even necessarily capturing the real New York, but it captures, it has this real, or this very compelling kind of grit to it, I guess, the movie.
There is a subgenre of horror, which is essentially, throughout the 80s and part of the 90s, New York was awful.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got like stuff like Basket Case, especially. A lot of films take place in New York and use it as, like, just instant grime setting. It's like, Possession. You know, Possession is right next to the Berlin Wall, and they use the Berlin Wall to thematically tie together the story. Like, New York is like that for all gross, grimy horror films from the 80s.
But I don't feel that way about Habit. Like, I think Habit has this feel to me, this texture in a similar way that River of Grass does, and so not necessarily, like, I feel like the grime or grit is the wrong way to put it.
He's addicted to, like, alcohol in the film, but it feels like he's addicted to heroin. Like, it feels gross to me.
I think that's more, yeah.
I think this movie just has, like, a very compelling indie... It feels like a low-budget, kind of intimate, small movie in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I know that all those...
Because it is.
I know all those adjectives, like, sound really dismissive, but...
I mean, it really was a shoestring. They barely scraped together money for it. The crew is unpaid, everything. Like, I think that's kind of what makes this film. This film is often regarded as the father of indie horror films, which is very interesting to think about, because, like, before this, all horror films were indie horror for the most part. You know, you started to have some big studio horror in the 70s and 80s, but for the most part, everybody was making low budget horror. It was just called horror. but definitely the intimacy of it makes it gives it that sort of quality.
You'll have to forgive him. He's going through a lot.
Whose phone was that? Because you're fucking dead. Just shut the fuck up.
Sorry, Abbott is texting me.
I'm sorry, who?
Abbott.
Abbott from Abbott and Costello.
Of Ann Costello fame.
Wait, don't you mean Habit is texting you?
No, he keeps talking about a Legacy sequel.
Yeah, they keep calling us about the Dark Universe reboot. Right, we have to keep telling them it's not happening.
So, have you guys ever had sex with somebody who was on their period?
Habit.
I will say, I do think the movie like overplays the vampire reveal a little too quickly, because there's this 1-2 punch of like, what's an Anna, the character? Yeah, Anna, the vampire girlfriend, asks to be invited in, and then immediately follows that up with, what's the gag? Like,
The garlic is really funny.
Is he? Yeah, she's bothered by the garlic.
Well, because they never show garlic. It's just like he's cooking, and then she like just smells it, and she's like, "You gotta be kidding me."
Well, the first day, like, she gets invited in.
Oh, and she's next to the garlic. Yeah, she sees the
Next to the
garlic hanging up. Yeah.
That's because Larry Fessenden is funny, though. He wrote a funny script.
One thing I will say is I think Larry Fessenden is like an exquisite actor, and I think he's
great,
remarkably magnetic to watch. Like, I guess my big kind of critique of this movie, though, is the two big elements of the plot is that he's both an alcoholic and he's coping with the recent passing of his father, but I couldn't help but I just didn't feel these elements in with like his relationship with his ex, and kind of like, I mean, he's still calling her and they are still kind of orbiting each other, but specifically the addiction element and the grief, it still felt kind of separate from what was happening with Anna. If we view this, if we view it all in more kind of metaphorical terms, or not metaphoric, but thematics. I mean, I think there's this quality, for sure, of like him whenever they're having sex, specifically towards the end when they're having sex next to like a cadaver in the hospital, and he sort of is clearly like uncomfortable by the situation and is being run down, and just is not like in a good space, but then kind of can't help himself nonetheless.
Right. I think that is what the metaphor of addiction and grief and despair is within Anna, is within the way that Anna sort of jams herself into the door frame,
right,
and cracks him open.
I guess what it's hard for me to elaborate on it, because it is these like not feeling something, it's all intangible. But I guess one big kind of a movie that came to mind when I was watching it was George Romero's Martin, and I can't help like when I watched that movie, I really felt that compulsion, that magnetism of knowing that you can't, Lord help me, I can't change, but that feeling of just like I felt it more intimately in those films than I did in Habit, where I feel like it almost does lean maybe too much into the kind of literal vampire plot happening.
But yeah, I mean, this whole movie is always sort of, it's up in the air. Larry Fessenden himself has even been like, it's all up for interpretation, and I think that's why it creates this confusion of what exactly is going on. What does he want exactly? Because there are times where he seems totally into it. There are times where he's accepting of the destruction, but he's also balancing what his friends think. And
friends, quote unquote.
Friends, quote unquote. They're New York friends, so I mean, how real are they?
What's her name? Jay?
Ray. Nick's girlfriend.
But I was specifically talking about Nick, the worst guy, I think.
Let's talk about Nick.
Let's talk about this
guy.
Piece of shit.
If there's one thing we can agree on in this film is that Nick is a piece of shit.
He's the Dr. Loomis of this movie. I think we're all kind of thinking of the same scene here, but the worst scene in the movie, genuinely just a bad scene, is when Sam is sort of telling Nick, like, hey,
exposing his heart. Yeah,
she really likes drinking my blood, and I think she's like draining me of my life force. And then Nick, being the great friend he is
his like, best friend.
Well, what the fuck are you saying, Sam? Are you saying she's drinking your she's a fucking vampire? She's drinking your fucking blood? Fucking get a grip, man.
I'm grateful to have nobody in my life who talks to me like that.
There's a line in The Leftovers where the Amy Brenneman's character Lori, she says, you never tell somebody who's in the midst of a psychotic break that they're in the midst of a psychotic break. And that's just like exactly what Nick does here. Just like he basically like he even says like you're he's like you're an irresponsible really piece of shit. It's like his friend who, oh, by the way, he's spent the whole movie,
who brings a bottle of wine.
He's been enabling his friend's alcoholism, even though his partner, who he and Ray are potentially like on the rocks or something. And despite multiple conversations between them throughout the film about like he shouldn't drink so much, it's bad for him, he just continuously is like, hey, have some alcohol.
I mean, that's the horror exists in every part of the life. It wasn't just when Anna appeared. It's how everything kind of needles you into these very despondent situations.
Speaking of enabling alcoholism,
was that Steve Buscemi helping the ex-girlfriend move in?
No, that was another Buscemi, actually.
No, it wasn't.
What's his name?
Stove Buscemi.
I don't think it was Steve Buscemi, but it's not unheard of.
It was a different Buscemi.
You're thinking about the film Blackout, which stars Michael Buscemi.
I'm thinking about the film Habit.
Are you telling me that you know for 100% fact that was Michael Buscemi who was helping?
Yes, Lisa's friend Dave, as played by Michael Buscemi.
Alright, how about you fucking lick my balls?
I'm
Jesus
gonna
Christ.
fuck you up.
Can we,
Gentlemen,
can we talk about how Anna...
Mr. Frankenstein's monster, please.
Gentlemen, look into my eyes. Look into my eyes.
What are we, some kind of monster squad? Can we talk about how Anna crashes the house party out in the country dressed like Doc Ock?
What?
Alright, the only thing left I have to say about Habit is that just like fucking like bite me and stab me and just like fucking kill me, dude.
That's what you have to say about the movie?
Habit. See it in a darkened theater.
I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here.
It's The Guest now, the fun film.
Shut up, dude.
What?
I guess that's true.
It's true. It's the most fun of the three films. Calm down.
It's just the way you said it. It's the way you said it. You have a tone problem.
Okay. I have a tone problem. Mr. Dracula, I'm going to report you to HR.
Is this picking up?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Rubbing my gross facial hair on the microphone.
We should do the troll movies. That'd be fun.
Wait, what? Why are you bringing up the troll movie?
We should do an episode.
Wait, do you mean Troll and Troll 2?
Correct.
Oh, because I said you can't piss on hospital. I thought you were talking about
Correct.
the Trolls movies, like the kids
I
movies.
thought you were talking about Trolls World Tour.
That'd be a
Can
lot
we do
more
Troll,
fun.
Troll 2, and Trolls World Tour?
No, Trolls Band Together. Come on.
Trolls
No, World
Band
Tour is
Together.
better.
No, but Band Together's the third one.
Trolls King of Monsters, directed by Adam Wingard.
Oh my god.
So speaking of Adam Wingard, yeah, our third film is a 2014 picture called The Guest, directed by Adam Wingard and starring Dan Stevens, Micah Monroe, who else do we have? Tabitha Shaw,
And
Sheila
featuring Lance Reddick.
Lance Reddick, Joel
Rest in
David
peace.
Moore, Leland Orser.
Wayland Orser,
Right.
the most important person in this cast.
He's great.
The actual star of the show.
Film also written by Simon Barrett, one of the...
I was gonna say,
Yes.
the most important person to mention right now is the star, Simon Barrett.
Right.
Remind me, what are some of his other credits? Simon Barrett.
He wrote You're Next, he wrote The Guest, he wrote Seance, which is wonderful. We don't talk about the VHS films here.
So yeah, The Guest is a film about it's about a family grieving the loss of their son who died overseas during his military service, and one day a stranger named David shows up on their doorstep, claiming to be a brother-in-arms to their lost son. Going so far as to say that he was there when their son died, and that on his deathbed he asked David to check in on his family and look after them. Is that true? Is everything David says actually a matter of fact, or?
Yes, this film is to be taken at face value.
Yes. David is the most reliable narrator ever put to film.
Ignore the fact that his credited name is literally in quotation marks, David.
He is basically
What?
Michael Myers meets the Terminator.
Oh, it's so just like a remake of Halloween, but if Michael Myers was charming enough to be around.
Charming and sexy as well.
Oh yeah, sexy.
Which, you don't see Michael outside of the overalls too often, so I don't mean to disparage him at this point, but
If I'm going on some of the drawings I've seen online, Michael Myers is sexy. Okay?
as a part of the Dead by Daylight community, I'm well aware Michael Myers is perceived as very sexy. Yeah, The Guest is probably one of my favorite thrillers. Full stop. I really like it. One of two films about a blonde stranger who is hyper capable in combat and has a synth soundtrack that I really enjoy.
I'm trying to predict what the other film is.
It shouldn't be hard to guess.
Is it his Drive?
His Drive.
Well, actually, I it's funny you mentioned Drive, because the thing is, The Guest to me is kind of part of a wave of, which maybe is spurred by Drive and its use of synth pop, of the kind, these, I don't want to say it's a bit of the kind of, I guess, 30-year cycle, 80s kind of nostalgia, but not quite nostalgia. 80s aestheticism, but not in the sense of, not in a diegetic sense. And, Micah Monroe is in...
It Follows.
Yes. They all kind of have this bit of a timelessness, in the sense that it's never quite established what year it is.
For the Guest, they would go in for Carpenter through and through.
For sure.
It's so clearly supposed to be like,
For sure.
well, like Halloween.
And who notably is probably, is one of the big names of synth music, undoubtedly.
Yeah. If they could, they probably would have got him to do the score for The Guest.
Oh, yeah.
I pair the guest up with You're Next a lot, because they're very similar tonally. I don't know what happened with Barrett and Wingard when they decided to stop pastiching 80s horror, but they made the wrong choice. As someone who saw Blair Witch, they made the wrong choice.
Yeah, well, they tried to go for 90s horror, and they just don't have their finger on the pulse the same way.
Now they're making Godzilla versus Kong 2.
Well, they're friends now. Godzilla X Kong. They're fighting another monkey.
Wait, they're fighting another gorilla?
Yeah.
There's like a different evil monkey.
Oh, it's another.
They're fighting Solovar.
Yeah.
Fighting another clan of Kong or something.
Dan Stevens is back in this new one.
Yeah, it's the guest sequel we never knew we were getting, but with Godzilla X Kong.
You know what's funny? Dan Stevens' character in that film was not actually named, so he very well could be David.
I was just thinking about Godzilla versus Kong and how it commits such a heinous sin of making me annoyed whenever Brian Tyree Henry is on screen, which is, I think that's one of the most sickening things a movie can do, because he is like
he's gonna come and he's gonna perceive the damage that Godzilla has wrought on Hong Kong, and he's gonna crouch and say, "This is my fault."
Joel, was that an Eternals reference, you asshole?
Yeah.
I think it'd be really funny to do an edit of Oppenheimer, but the only change is that after the Trinity, a couple scenes after the Trinity test, it just cuts to Brian Tyree Henry witnessing the aftermath of Hiroshima and blaming himself. But no, speaking of of great actors, great performances, and going back to Dan Stevens, I think he has a similar quality to Ryan Gosling in Drive, of towing this line between extremely charming and obviously very handsome guy that really kind of magnetic and really ropes you in to his whole deal, while also just having this kind of cold creepiness of a killer, Dan Stevens is like really good in this movie.
I don't think there's ever a point where, even when he's committing like heinous violence, that David ever becomes unlikable, which is quite a impressive note to his performance,
For sure.
He's always funny.
Yeah.
When he's threatening to kill the two gun dealers.
Oh, he doesn't threaten to kill them. He just says, "I'm gonna kill you."
"I'm gonna kill you." And
yeah.
The guy responds with, "What the fuck, David?"
What the fuck, David?
And it's a bit like, in a way, it's kind of like the inverse of Drive. Where Drive is like, you kind of gradually watch this guy open up and become a real human being and a real hero, and the guest is sort of just waiting for or I guess like you're pulled into this charm of him, and then
in the guest you're haunted by his soul.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
as the minutes drag on by.
Yeah, there's I guess actually I would maybe rescind that and say that it's a similar kind of watching these two in both movies is this similar kind of watching the charm kind of fade, or I guess Drive is a bit like a standardized curve, whereas the guest is more like a downward slope.
Richard has more information on that subject. Richard?
I can't get into too many details, nor would you want me to.
So that's our review of Drive. Up next we have The Guest. The Guest is a film about waiting for Lance Reddick to appear and getting three scenes of Lance Reddick telling people that David is very dangerous.
Military police. He's like the Dr. Loomis of The Guest.
Including being a little bit crazy himself.
Just completely dehumanizing David. And telling everyone he needs to be put down. Like a dog. That's the one thing they missed, is David should have eaten a dog.
Yeah, Lance Reddick is despite only being in, just the third act, really, to this film, he really steals the scenes that he's in, you know? Like, I think he's one of the more memorable parts of this movie, despite having a relatively minor role in it.
We get a lot of build-up of Lance Reddick telling people about David, coming to find David, finding David, chasing David. He gets dispatched very quickly in the middle of the prom/Halloween maze.
You talking about Lance Reddick or David?
I'm talking about Lance Reddick getting stabbed, almost dying off screen.
You get the impression that like he's not much of a field officer.
He went for it though. He was fully out there.
Sure.
When they all go to the house to find David. I don't know why he dies so easily. They were setting up a big Loomis versus Michael thing. Maybe it's subverting your expectations.
I do think to briefly touch again on the ways in which David is clearly inspired by Michael Myers. I think it's funny that that inspiration gets reversed when you get to like Halloween Kills, because that movie opens with Michael Myers killing firefighters, and that's how this movie ends.
Is Halloween Kills the sequel to The Guest?
Evil dies tonight!
I don't think Chandler's been talking enough on this film.
I think Chandler's drunk.
I think so.
You know, Chandler, your profile picture, you look like you're in The Guest.
It is. I do look like a...
This is a great joke for our podcast. This is a great joke for our audio podcast.
You should do the full trailer for The Mummy that they released without the everything but the audio, the dialogue track.
What the hell?
Was Tom Cruise the mummy? Did he become the mummy at the end?
No. Sophia Boutella was the mummy.
But didn't he become the mummy?
Oh, I didn't see the mummy.
No. But Russell Crowe was Dr. Jekyll / Mr. Hyde.
Okay, but that's not
I didn't ask who Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde was.
Why didn't I make that your names? Why didn't I make your names Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? That would have been
Why would a
joke.
doctor work at Universal Studios?
He could be a doctor in something other than medicine, you fascist.
He's a consultant.
He's a doctor in film studies.
Jesus Christ, like, use your fucking imagination, Wyatt. I swear to God, I'm sorry, Mr. Frankenstein.
Well, use your fucking imagination, Mr. Frankenstein.
My brain is literally in a jar right now.
I literally have brain damage.
Is the head just a jar for the human body?
My brain is duct taped together.
Oh, that's fine. I had a joke about old horror films not crossing my synapses that I never got to tell in the Peeping Tom section.
Yeah,
we'll say it now and then splice it back in.
No, I'm gonna say it and then in 3 episodes it'll turn up.
Okay.
And it's just gonna be the Mummy trailer with no dialogue.
So, do we have any final thoughts on Adam Wingard's 2014 film, The Guest?
Joel, would you like to speak about Leland Orser?
I would love to speak about star of 7, Leland Orser.
He's in that. I agree.
He's the star.
He's in 7. Yeah, we love Leland Orser. He's an incredible actor.
Who does he
just
play?
wish we could see him in better films.
He's the father.
dad.
He's the dad in The Guest that always wants a beer.
Yeah.
David,
He's
I'm gonna
always
get a beer.
saying,
Would you like
I'm
one?
gonna get a beer.
I'm gonna have a beer before dinner. Can I offer you one?
No, thank you.
No, okay? Suit yourself.
But he steals the scene a lot because he's genuinely like a great actor. But I'm not watching those Taken sequels. I don't care if he's in them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't think I put these drawers on tight enough on this desk.
Is he talking about his undies? His drawers?
You wish. Okay, do we have any final thoughts about The Guest? Or are we talking
These
about
are our final thoughts about the guest,
Are you talking
Mr. Dracula.
Are you talking about the actor whose name I already forgot?
Leland
Orser. We talked about him. I complimented him 7 times in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you wanna pull an Army of Darkness on this, where I explain the history of the film twice in a row in a drunken ramble while Chandler passes out?
No.
Because Chandler has already passed out.
No.
Already. This is why I needed to bring him back up for this Halloween.
Yeah, I worry that you all have been drinking the salt water here. Your friend seems to be passing out.
We're just so depressed because of our alcoholism and our 7 children that run the ramen noodle factory.
7 children?
And I ride my little train down to my salt farm.
You know, I threw a child into a lake once.
Now, hold on a second. He's perjuring himself. It was a complete accident. It was not intentional.
We're gonna have to censor that, or else the studio will sue us.
The
got it
brain
on
was
camera.
still underdeveloped. He thought it was the same as throwing flower petals.
Wait, it wasn't?
He was a tragic figure.
What's going on here? We got a Halloween episode and you're referencing Tora-san of Goto? Like, what are we doing?
That's a pretty scary story.
What are we doing? Okay, can we fucking wrap this up? Like, this is terrible. Come on, let's go.
We're late for an earnings call back at Universal.
Let's wrap this up like Boris
Like
Karloff
the Mummy.
in The Mummy. Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up like The Guest, where we tease a sequel and then never do this again.
It still makes me very sad. I haven't listened to the sequel
the
concept album
That
yet.
was the cut.
Oh, that's the cut?
There's a concept
album? That's the cut.
Whoa, hold on a second. We gotta talk about this concept album.
We're fucking there was an album, like a joke album of the Guest 2 soundtrack.
Oh.
I could use a drink. How about you, David?
So tell me, Mr. Frankenstein's monster, Mr. Dracula, what are these film prints doing in our salt mine?
Are you drunk?
Maybe.
Regardless, that's none of your business.
Yeah, it would do you both well never to mention this to anyone.
And stay out of the mine unless you want to end up like Shinya Tsukamoto in silence.
Huh?
Mr. Dracula, if you would please turn into a bat so we can get out of here.
Huh?
That old devil Hooch has turned her into the unsightly person you see before you.
See it in a dark and